58% of Google searches do not end up with a click. So SEO of how you actually get people to click and drive, that's gone. And the reason for that is who's interested in Google Blue links anymore? No one.
What's the biggest misconception you see leaders have about AI today?
Unless you have really good data, it's going to work off a dirty data set that's going to give you inconsistencies. If your firm is not listed as those 2 or 3 options, very quickly you're going to become redundant. If we think people are just going to lean into some of these AI tools because it's good for them, we need to think again.
Welcome to the Agency Insider Show, where we unpack how modern leaders, founders, and marketers are actually using technology to build real businesses. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal. Today's guest is Mark Kelly, founder of Elders, a global AI community recruitment and advisory platform that connects companies with real-world AI talent and practical AI use case. So what I appreciate about Mark's work is that it's not about hype or buzzwords. It's about helping businesses understand how to actually use AI, how to upskill them, and how to build communities around learning and trust. Mark, welcome to the Agency Insider Show.
Navneet, thank you very much for having me on the show today.
Yes, so let's dive into your journey. So before I dive into your journey, I want to start somewhere unexpected. Before Elders, before AI Ireland, before any of this, you were a sales consultant at Brown Thomas and then an assistant manager in an enterprise rent-a-car. So is that correct?
It was. So I was in well, to get myself through college, I worked in Brown Thomas, which is kind of like the Harrods of Ireland, where I sold like Gucci and kind of like Hugo Boss suits, Ralph Lauren, and it was a wonderful experience because I got to work with people who were multimillionaires because they would come in to shop, and I'd be
Right.
like their personal shopper to help them purchase. And it was just such a an opening in terms of what they did, how they did it. But a lot of the people that I served were like technology founders, or they would go in and the price would never be a thing for them. They would just want to have that experience. So that was a wonderful grounding. Also, it gave me commission. So when you were going into, you do your part-time jobs, for a lot of people it's a bit of a grudge, just to go in and just do the day to day. I went in knowing I could make loads of money, and I was just so excited about that every day. So that was fantastic. And then after I graduated from Smurfit Business School, I went to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And if you don't know what Enterprise Rent-A-Car, it's kind of like a mini MBA where you go, you collect people in a car, you try to upsell them on getting a larger car or buying insurance. And so that's you're dealing with customers, but then also you're dealing with like brokers and dealerships like Mercedes, BMW, and you're trying to give them replacement cars for their customers if they're trying to drop them in for a service. So again, you went from washing cars to managing operations of fleets, and it was an incredible journey. And within 18 months, I was running one of the largest fleets in Ireland in terms of occupancies of cars. And again, that taught me so much. But the one thing that it did teach me was in enterprise, you never got paid a cent of commission unless the net promoter score was 95% and above, which meant, would you recommend our service to a friend? And it didn't matter if they said, yes, I had a great experience. If they did not say, we would recommend your service to a friend, you didn't get paid any bonus. So it was a really, really strong lesson. Building on work experience at Brown Thomas was, if you don't give incredible customer service, we don't care how much money you're making, it's not going to be repeatable. And that's what I
Right.
learned from those experiences.
That's the first I heard about. I mean, we have incentive, but that's first when you actually get paid, what they say will refer. Wow. So how are you doing that?
So what I would do when I worked in Brown Thomas, I have a black book. So you can think about reactive sales where people walk in and say, listen, I want shirt or suits or whatever. And I would make money from that. But what I used to do is I had my black book, and as stock came in, I would call people up and said, your size 52 is here. I know you don't like shopping. You've got it all laid out for you. If you come in on Saturday, I'll have it all ready for you to go to try it on and then to leave. And typical male shoppers from kind of 30 to 50, they didn't want to shop. But if they knew that their stock was there in their size, they knew what they wanted, that was a good benefit to them. So that increased my sales dramatically. So I had my reactive sales and then my proactive sales. And with enterprise, what I just quickly understood is that when people were in the car, you understood it. Did they want a bigger car? Did they want a safer car? Did they want to make sure that they had insurance to protect themselves when they're out driving? And I really ensured that for me, I focused on what their problem was at hand. And that made it very, very straightforward for me to upsell and give them a better service, but also allowed me to get higher on the rankings too. I brought that into my recruitment career where I actually was initially a Java recruiter. So I was helping software developers, Java software developers, make placements. But when I got into that field, 2008, there was a complete market crash. You may remember it. Iceland went bankrupt, Bear Stearns. It was a complete disaster. So there was very, very few jobs. Bar web reservations and IBM, they're pretty much the only jobs that were posted on Monster, right? So that was kind of one of those things. So what I did at the time was, how do I differentiate myself in a world of recruitment when there's no jobs? So I said is, why don't I figure out who the very, very best candidates are in the market and try to represent them? So over a 4-year period of time, I met over 1,800 candidates face to face, which is about
Yeah.
30 to 40 people per month. And because I knew the people so well, when a job vacancy did come up, I quickly filled it.
Okay. And so what exactly led you from, I mean, working there, and then because you started, you left your secure job, co-founded Elders in a market that barely exists, and correct me if I'm not wrong, in 2018, right?
Yeah. So what I did was I was always into tech, and I became a director. I did work in life sciences, security, general technology. But what I learned was that AI and cybersecurity were becoming very, very prevalent. And I attended Gartner conferences, and I said, I really feel like there's something there. Now, before I handed in my notice, I wanted to be really sure about that. So in my personal time, every weekend or some days after work, I went and interviewed AI leaders in the field of variety of different computer vision, natural language processing in academia and industry. And I asked them, is this hype? Do you think it's the next big thing? And out of 84 interviews I did over 6 months, they said, yes, it is. And I had enough confidence from that to say, okay, I'm handing in my notice. I'm going to co-found all this. But while I also did that, I said, well, I've got all these interviews. Why don't I create a not-for-profit, which was AI Ireland? I published 50 of those interviews. Later, we had the AI Awards, which showcases the best and brightest of applied AI. We've now had over 950 applications. And this is a really good foundation for me to learn about what's real and what's not. Now, at all this, we're doing data scientist, machine learning, cybersecurity type placements. And I'm kind of like a priest in some ways because I do executive search in AI. So I help AI professionals who are leaders get the top jobs. And they tell you what it's really, really like in that field because they're saying, listen, these are challenges, this is hype, this is not.
Right.
And over the last 8 to 9 years, that enabled me to have confidence to talk about it and help companies go on that AI journey.
Now, so of course, you said you talk to a lot of companies and across industry. So, what's the biggest misconception you see leaders have about AI today?
That it's a tool that you can just use it like IT and put it into a system and you go, right? And a lot of people get frustrated that it's not a consistent deterministic approach. And it's not like an automation IT software where it just gives you consistent. With AI, there's going to be differences of the output because it's artificial, right? It's coming up with different types of outcomes as well. So explaining to people that, but also ensuring that you have to have really good data. And unless you have really good data, it's going to work off a dirty data set that's going to give you inconsistencies. So for leaders, for a lot of the time, they think, well, let's just throw machine learning at it, or let's just get AI on it. But there's a process to building it. And that's creating this data rich culture of actually having good, accessible, clean, relevant data. Because the majority of AI projects fail because of inaccessibility to data, poor decisions in terms of what projects to work on, but literacy. So what we're finding for companies that are very, very successful at introducing AI, let's say 20% of organizations, is because they understand literacy about AI in terms of teaching their people how to use it. Also, remove some of the fear. For a lot of people, they're thinking AI is going to take my job. It's going to actually reimagine what I do. And there's this kind of like identity crisis. Because let's say you're no longer doing what you're doing every day, and AI is actually doing it for you. What does that mean for you, right? So for a lot of people, they don't want to actually use it because they don't want to feel like they're dumbing down their brain. They also don't want to lose that sense of purpose about themselves. So literacy is incredibly important for success on the people side, but also on the process side. Now, if I could save you 15 minutes driving to work later on today, chances are you grab it off me, right? And that's the workflows. And that workflow is you driving to work. What if I can help you with your workflow of the tasks that you do every day, where I'm helping you save 4 to 5 minutes per task? Well, that's an incredible benefit. And a lot of people would jump into that. But with AI, we could also say, why don't we actually just remove that workflow? Why don't we just reimagine what that process is? So if we're empowering people on the people side, improving the process side, then we're actually more thinking about how do we introduce technology as an enabler to allow people to do better work. But fundamentally though, with AI, what we're trying to help companies do is have a different perspective. So if I can give you a different perspective of how you serve your customers, how your people do their work every day, you're going to increase your efficiency and you're going to start to reimagine your work, which fundamentally generates a profit. And that's where you try to help business leaders is give them a new perspective to go on that journey. But a big part of this is change. And I don't know about you, but most people just don't want to change, right? And it's trying to be that catalyst to change.
I face this every day in my office where people don't want to change, and they think it's just, as you said, it's just a process. It's not. AI is a transformation, and they are not ready to transform. That's where this. That's a
Yeah,
real.
and it's behavioral change, right? And people get surprised. But let's say we spend €1 on AI implementation. We're spending €5 on change management. And people are thinking, what? It's like, yeah, well, you need literacy, behaviors. We've all got exercise equipment in our house. If you're like me, you threw your treadmill out this year because you didn't use it. It was like a kind of a clothes stand. And I know it's really good for me, but no one showed me how to use it. And I didn't get a runner's high, so I didn't continue to use it. So if we think people are just going to lean into some of these AI tools because it's good for them, we need to think again.
You are right. I mean, a lot of time, once they have gone through the workflow, which I'm trying to teach them, they are actually amazed how much time it saves. But on next day, they go back to their default mode. So it's like the
Yeah.
default mode is the problem. I'm sure everybody's facing this.
And as you get over 30, right, your neuroplasticity starts to kind of form. So you don't even want it. So you get become more ingrained. And then you got cognitive dissonance where you just want to just continue on that journey too. But there are ways out of that, right? And there's some simple ways, such as a lunch and learn, where you bring in a team of, let's say, 3 or 4 salespeople, and you do some
Okay.
sales demos using AI to say, okay, here's some of the AI tools I've used, here's some of the prompts I use, here's some of the responses. And let's say 2 or 3 of you over a sandwich do that every Monday for the next 4 weeks. You're
Okay.
collectively getting better and better. It's kind of like a book club for AI, but you've got an accountability partner.
Right.
Right? And this kind of playfulness enables you to do so much more. The second thing is kind of like that lunch and learn, right? It's a lunch and lunch. So let's say, Namely, we went in and we started to complain about our job and say, my job sucks because of da 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 da. And let's say you come up with 20 reasons why there's administration, manual effort, whatever it might be. Pick 2 or 3 of those complaints that you have. And as a collective team, try to work with AI to automate some of that. And then if you start to work like that, you will start to alleviate bottlenecks in your workflow, increase your sales, or be more productive, and people start pulling up their sleeves then because it's relevant to them, right? And some of the most powerful moments could be at the water cooler where your colleagues are sitting there to go, well, how come Mark's off playing golf today or he's doing yoga later on? Don't you know he started to use some of these AI tools? And they lead in, they want a bit of that action, right? So it's not always the way you think it might be in terms of AI's adoption.
Right. So, you've been personally evaluated over 750 plus live enterprise AI projects through AI reports. Now, I want to extract the pattern recognition from your brain. So, when you look at an AI project in the first 30 seconds, What tells you whether it's going to deliver ROI or become a shelfware?
It's solving a problem that's meaningful. So it's
Okay.
staying away from the wouldn't be cool snare project. Wouldn't it be cool if we did this? So there's actually working on a workflow that actually moves the business forward, right? That's the first thing. Because what can happen is you can solve a problem using AI, but if people don't care about it, they just lift up their shoulders and go, oh, I don't really care. They
Right.
didn't do it, right? So they work on a problem that's meaningful. Now, usually the problems around cost optimization, predictive maintenance, and or for engineers using tools like Cursor or Devon to be significantly more productive, right? So there's certain aspects that you can actually try to see. But if I had 4 hours to cut down a tree, 3.5 hours would be sharpening the axe, right? And this is an Abe Lincoln thing, and 30 minutes on actually on the tree. And really the problem definition is what I look at, is how well they define the problem and then they work through the steps of the solution. And this is where businesses are too quick to rush into working on a solution that isn't well defined. And then they get distraught or frustrated because when it actually doesn't go from pilot to enterprise, they don't generate return on investment. And I still think it comes down to that integration issue where you've got technology and AI systems trying to bring work together, which is particularly challenging. Doesn't necessarily come straightforward, but obviously the problem definition piece isn't done correctly.
Okay. Now, so what's the most common mistake you see in applications? Is it technical, strategic, or organizational?
Majority is organizational, where the enterprise gets senior leader back in to drive the projects. They don't necessarily get the output they want in the short term, and they give up, and then they move on to the next shiny toy, right? And this is a big challenge because what happens is morale drops. So let's say you're getting all the team to go, right, we're introducing this AI, we're looking to try to improve customer service, for example. But then when they don't get the impact they want, they move on to this next toy. And that means that the rest of the people that have been really excited about going on this journey or being on that change agent, the morale drops. And then the next project that comes up, next AI project or next digital transformation project, they're less inclined to go on that journey because that's where the whispers start to happen.
Right.
This didn't work before. I haven't even got the time to do my job as it is. Why would I want to go on that? And that's where leaders need to step up, be authentic, and be honest
Okay.
about the journey that people need to go on. Because I met Brad Smith, who's the chairman of Microsoft. I've met CFO of OpenAI, Sarah Fryer. These people don't know where AI is going to go, right? So for the average enterprise or business leader, they don't know either. But so there's an element of a trust leap, which Rachel Botsman eloquently talks about, where you need to go on the journey where you don't quite know the outcome's going to be, but you're systematically looking to try to improve the processes and give a better customer experience.
Okay. And so, do agency owners makes different mistakes than enterprise companies?
Well, enterprise companies is particularly difficult because you've got on typical, 5 to 20,000 employees, and trying to get people to do anything like that is very, very difficult. You usually have to start off within departments and build it out. With agency owners or kind of smaller firms, they can move significantly quicker. They can use off-the-shelf tools, and they can start to actually see faster and faster impact. And for a lot of those people, they can say between 2 to 7 hours per week guaranteed, but they can start to reimagine how they distribute their work as well. So they're in a really, really good position. Like it's not unheard of now for people with 10 to 20 employees to be doing what 300 to 400 people are doing. Right. And if I was to say to you like 3 years ago, that was the case, you'd laugh at me, right? But we've
Right.
now seen some of these companies that are, the most innovative firms, less than 10 people in the business. Right. And I don't know a business leader who doesn't want to have that type of impact. And these AI first businesses can go on that journey, but it all starts with the leader. The leader needs to understand how good these tools are, but also the trough of disillusionment where they're not as good as they think they are.
Okay. Now, a lot of our, in fact, our audience is primarily agencies and digital marketing professionals. Now they are bombarded with AI tools, and of course, there are literally more than 100,000 AI products and services now. So,
Yeah.
from your vantage point, interviewing leaders at the companies building these tools, what's the honest truth about which AI investments are paying off for service business versus what are just expensive experiments?
So where I see the significant value is decision support, right? So you think about you're making decisions every day with your business. Well, you can take these AI, let's say ChatGPT or Gemini,
Okay,
their reasoning ability is incredible. They've gone from like an IQ of 96 to like an IQ of 136, if not higher. So
right,
you can start helping it to help you make better decisions around your marketing, around what's working, what's not working. But then on the practical side, let's say we use this podcast later on as collateral. We can take the transcript from this podcast, put it into Google Gemini, and say, act as if you're a marketing guru. Find me the three most interesting parts about this content, repurpose it for a LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and post. Now there'll be a human in the loop to fix that, right? But you've now got that opportunity to repurpose all that different type of content and to generate impact. And you can start to grade what's working and what's not working. One way that I've used it recently, I was doing a sales pitch and the call was recorded. I got the transcript and I knew it didn't go well, right? I took the transcript, put it to Gemini and said, act as if you are an Olympic sales judge. Grade me out of 10 how I did. Got a 6.5 out of 10. Not so great. Walk me through what I should have done in different and give me some responses that I can go back to the customer to try to salvage this situation.
right,
Now, between us, it gave us two or three ways. I worked with it to come up with a new sales pitch that I proposed, and we got a good outcome from it. But even just the process of having that decision support, using the AI, using my ability to reflect and reason,
right.
comes up with a different type of workflow.
That is true. So now, uh, if an agency owner has $5,000 per month to invest in AI tool and implementation, where does that money should go first?
So if it was me, I'd be using a tool like Google Gemini, Copilot, or ChatGPT, paying for €20 per month for like the license. But if I had a team of maybe for four or five, I would have them on
Okay.
a Teams account. So I'd have four or five of them on the Teams account, and I would share all the kind of key insights as a team, collectively data.
Yeah.
I would create some GPTs, or on Google they're called gems or
Yeah.
agents,
Right.
and I'd have these workflows that would do certain tasks for me. So, for example, one of the agents could be called marketing brochure agent, right? And you train it on previous marketing brochures that you've created for customers. You you teach it what's good, you teach what's bad, and if a
Okay.
brief comes in, you can actually use the agent to come up and repurpose new briefs based on those customer experiences. The second way you could use a GPT or an agent is to create a customer persona. So let's say I wanted to create a customer persona for you, Navneet, and I wanted to understand how I would sell to you. Well, I could take your LinkedIn profile, I could take a transcript, I could do a Q&A, and then I've got a Navneet, the synthetic persona that I actually pitch ideas to, and I get real-time responses back on my marketing. And this is there. Now, let's say I want to come up with 20 to 50 fictional personas. Well, there's now over 800 million active users of ChatGPT. I can create these different personas in a highly, highly nuanced way and get insights on my features that I'm rolling out. So this is what I would be doing if I was marketing straight away. The second thing I'd look at is look at some of the avatars on marketing or adverts that are there for like Synthesia or HeyGen, and I would create advertisements to see what they go on social media. Did they rank high? Did they not rank high? And for like 20 or 30 euro per month, you've actually got a 24/7 assistant that's always available, right? So there's just two ways to do it. But my favorite way is just strategic insights. looking at market research of my competitors, looking at what's working, looking what's not working, and make sure that's weaved into any strategic plans that I'm doing day to day. I would make sure that my team is literate using AI, that they're feeling comfortable with it. And then I would try to burn the ships of how we previously worked and start to do that right. Now, let me give you two examples. One tool I recommend to marketing or sales agents is Whisperflow. Now, I've got no affiliation with the company, but Whisperflow allows you to do speech to text, which
Right.
you're 5 times quicker doing speech to text than typing, right? And I'm using Whisperflow day to day. But when I get tired, I go back to typing. So one of the things that I stopped myself typing was I changed my keyboard to Mandarin. And I don't know Mandarin. So I have to speak now because my keyboard's useless, right?
Okay.
The second thing I did, Naveed, is I'm on a stand-up desk here, right? So I'm a stand-up desk at the moment. And when I get lazy, I always sat down on my seat, right? I always sat down on my seat. I brought it down. But the minute I took my seat out of my home office and brought it downstairs, I was forced to stand, right? So sometimes you have to burn the ships to go on that journey. So the stand-up desk for standing, whisper flow for speaking to text, and this is where the future. So I would be saying to that agency or marketing or sales, get
Right.
some headsets for your people, get them a speech to text solution, get them using that to be more productive, help them have a decision support using AI that's not making the decisions, but helping them actually make the decisions. And then start to do some workflows, lunch and learns, right? How do we actually start to increase our literacy? But how do we actually start to remove the friction in our workflow? Now, we do that to ourselves. Then we go to our customers and say, hey, this is how we went on our own transformation journey. Let us help you with yours. Instantly, people are going to recognize that and they're actually going to lean into what you've got to offer.
Yeah, uh, that this is actually a good way. I mean, would you could force people to adapt AI. I'm sure. I like some of these ideas, and I'm sure listeners as well. Now, what's the biggest waste of money you see agencies spending on when it comes to AI?
The algorithm has changed, right? So 58% of Google clicks do not end up, oh, so 58% of Google searches do not end up in a click,
That's
right? And this was recognized at HubSpot, right? So what we're seeing is the whole SEO of how you actually get people to click and drive, that's gone. And the reason for that is who's interested in Google Blue links anymore? No one. And
right.
there's this AI mode where people are now interacting with AI, right? And what does this look like? Well, let's say you're in real estate and I'm looking for a 2 to 3 bed apartment in New Delhi. Well, if I'm looking through that through ChatGPT, ChatGPT is walking me through options. The next
Okay.
logical question I'm going to ask is what real estate firm should I use while I'm in New Delhi? And it's going to give me 2 or 3 options. Now, if
Right.
your firm is not listed as those 2 or 3 options, what do you think is going to happen? Very
Right.
quickly, you're going to become redundant, right? And
Right.
people don't understand that generative engine optimization is about how you phrase your services different. So if it's snowing or raining here, how do I spend 2 hours with the kids because they're all off from school? Well, I
Right.
will phrase that as if I've just phrased it to a friend rather than a specific search like that. And generative engine optimization is going to pick that up. And if my firm is going to rank higher for doing generative engine optimization, I'm going to be highest people actually use. So very, very quickly, this is changing. So for a lot of agencies, if they're still working in the old way of the internet, they need to quickly understand there's a new front gatekeeper.
Right.
There's a new front door. And that gatekeeper is determining how you get in, depending on the content that you write, how you're helping your customers. Are you on Reddit? Are you on Quora? How are you getting your message out there? Because if you're not getting it out there in the new age of AI, you're going to be way down the rankings.
Right. Now, uh, so you have a methodology which you discussed previously, which was discovery, deploy, and scale. So I have to look at about it a bit.
Yeah,
Now, so most of these frameworks, I mean, not these, but most of the framework sounds great in theory, but
yeah.
fall apart when it's in practice. Now, can you take me through a real example, either from elders or a company you have advised, where you applied this methodology and what happened at each stage?
So every company is different. And people are surprised when the first thing I say to them is that you know your use cases better than I do, right? Because you're in the workflows every day. So what I get what leaders to do is the first thing is to do an AI readiness survey. An
Okay.
AI readiness survey is answering questions about how you and your people use AI day to day or don't, or what workflows are set up to allow you to actually go on this journey and what needs to be automated. And also, what's the best ideas your people have? I take that data, I go back to the senior leadership team and I go, well, here's a gap. This is what we currently think we're doing. However, this is what we've actually discovered. This is the gap in the organization. The
Okay.
next thing I do is I look at 2 to 3 relevant use cases where we could actually start to use automation straight day to day. Let me give you an example. So let's say there's a company called Irish Hotels Federation. So
Okay.
they would have, let's say, 400 employees, and they've got a department of like 4 or 5 people in human resources. And they would get regular calls about the employee handbook. What clothes do we wear on certain days? What's the time off? There's been a grievance. There was an incident with 2 employees. What should we do as per the handbook? And regularly the people will say, read the handbook. And they say, listen, I don't have time to read the handbook. Just tell me the answer, right?
Right.
Well, if you create an agent where the only purpose of that agent is to answer questions about the handbook, it won't hallucinate, it will tell the correct answer. That could save between 3 to 5 hours of that HR team per week, where people just get a chatbot, just answers questions around the agent, right? So that's a discovery of what could save time and energy for the team. The deployment is the agent where suddenly people are actually using it. But another example could be a lease finder. So let's think of a real estate company that's
Okay.
regularly getting in leases from their customers. And they need to be able to spot the key areas in the leases, go back and advise to their customers what they should actually do, and then get the leases signed off and approved by the legal department. Well, if you've
Okay.
got an AI called Lease Finder, the AI's only job is to find the gotchas in the leases and then respond back and give you the answers to that. It's not trained on anything else other than leases that the company has used over the last 3 to 5 years. That can save a company between 25 minutes to 2 hours per day. You think,
Right.
okay, that's not so big, but it's big if you've got a team of 400 people because that scales every day, right? So you've got the discovery, you've got the deployment, right? And that's enabling people to save time every day to become more efficient. But the quickest way I try to help businesses is think of AI as the second brain, where you're trying to take this, all that tacit knowledge in your head and create a second brain of it. So let's say, Nemly, you're going on a holiday for 2 weeks now, and you've got a small team. Why don't you answer 100 frequently asked questions that you've got over the last 12 months? Type out the answers or speak the answers. Let's say we're using a speech tool. And when you go on holiday, we've got an agent called What Would Navneet Do? And no one is able to call you up when something happens. They just ask your agent. And because you've answered the whole 100 questions in detail, that agent will respond back. Now, let's say you come back and say, well, we only got 70% of the questions answered. We're so disappointed. You update it with an additional 30, and now you've got it more combined. Now, this doesn't mean that you stop becoming important, but it's helpful for people that new employees,
Right.
existing employees who want confirmation, and that information is there. So let's say we do that for sales, we do that for marketing, we do that for customer service. We're creating that second brain that's allowing all that tacit knowledge to be there, which allows us to scale, right? And the reason why most organizations can't scale is they haven't got their people processes all lined down and got good workflows. And these agents start to allow you to actually do that more effectively. But while you're actually answering those questions, Nabi, you're going to probably have a bit of a moment to say, well, hey, why are we even doing it that way? Couldn't we actually reimagine that? Scrap my answer, let me come up with a new answer. And it's forcing you to actually think about the answers you're given. And this is particularly helpful for somebody that leaves the organization. So let's say somebody is retiring, they work in manufacturing, they understand how the machines work, and that's going to be a big loss for them. Well, if they sit down before they go and answer all the most important questions, it's going to be wonderful because that will become what Frank knows. And then you can weave that into the tacit knowledge of the business. And with
Right.
20% of employees leaving each year through natural churn or whatever,
Right.
why would you want to lose all that information when you can keep it in house?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking into it. Now, you mentioned about agents. Now, let's talk about the agentic AI, which we believe is going to be 2026 and 27 onwards about. Now, you have said that your colleagues would be an agent, and suddenly you are kind of a hybrid team. Now, for an agency owner who are still figuring out basic AI implementations, how do they prepare for a world where team member rather than just tools?
So the first thing is getting that data right, right? So remember, you're creating these knowledge documents. So that knowledge document could be how you create a customer brief or the 5 P's of marketing, right? So you're going to create these knowledge documents or your
Right.
vision, your value system, right? And when you start to build them, you can start training these agents on the knowledge documents, right? So that's the first step. Now, the second thing is getting them to do more specific tasks for you. Now, you'll start to understand your workflow, and AI is really good at simple, straightforward tasks and does them really, really well. And these
Okay.
agents go and do these tasks for you. So, an agent could go using Copilot, researcher could go and research your competitors, analyze it, come back with a report that was really, really good, right? Now
Right.
you will be able to determine the key facts because of your tacit knowledge, right? So that's still going to be important. Now, some people in your organization are going to be comfortable managing people, but
Right.
some people in your organizations don't want to manage people. They kind of prefer to manage agents. They don't call in sick. They don't have a hangover. They can start to manage those different aspects. So it starts to become more hybrid, and you're teaching the AI what your vision of a business is, and then you're starting to treat them as a colleague, which is really, really helpful as well. But leaders need to understand no one's going to tap you on the shoulder and go, you're ready for AI now.
Right.
They have to go on the journey and lean into it and trial out the tools. As you rightly said, there's hundreds of thousands of AI tools now, but they need to start to figure out which ones are good and which ones are not so good. And then they'll start to say, okay, this is the trough of disillusionment going, these are terrible, but also there's a lot of value here. And
Okay.
that's where they actually start to build the value chain where they're taking their existing problems and starting to weave them in to it. But I think a good way to start about this is personal projects. So let me give you an
Okay.
example of how I did a personal project.
Okay.
So I created a mini Mark GPT based on my health records, blood test results, my DEXA scans, all these different areas. And I wanted to know, it's like, how do I become healthier? What do I need to do based on my personalized data? I put up pictures of my thumb when I got hit when I fell on something. I take a picture of my toe, and it's created this health record. So now, when I get different prescriptions or medication, I'm asking my AI agent about how this is going to actually impact me. And this gives me an awful lot of confidence to know, okay, well, this is how good it is. Now, for a lot of people, they're thinking, I would never use an AI like that. I want to talk to a doctor. But it takes 2 to 3 weeks sometimes to actually book a doctor's appointment in some cases, where I can actually have an AI agent that's trained to give me that different types of insights. So having that personal friction to figure out what's good or not is my best advice I would give to marketer leaders who want to figure out how good or challenging this tech is.
Okay. And so what does an agency org chart look like in 2027 if agentic AI plays out the way you and me expect?
It's a great question. The first thing you need to look at is the agency that you've set up or you're running or you're involved in. The org charts are probably 5 years old. And if you look at the job descriptions in them, they're not fit for purpose anymore because they've got a list of detailed description, right? But what we've seen from Stanford last year is that AI can do a significant number of tasks that humans can do to a high level. Now, what that doesn't mean is AI is going to start doing your job tomorrow. But what it does mean is an agency owner needs to understand that the current job description needs to be updated to add in AI doing parts of the role. So that's where you're going to have an augmentation. So let's say you've got someone that hands in their notice January 1st. Rather than hire back someone in to do that job, why don't you use that as an opportunity to rewrite the org structure and the job description
Okay.
based on someone using AI within that job within marketing or sales? And then you start to become more of an AI first agency rather than just the status quo.
Okay. Now, so are there any specific agent capabilities you already seeing that agency should be experimenting with today? I know you said start with the personal project, but on an agency level,
I would say so. My one of my favorite tools is Manus, and
okay,
Manus AI. So it's MANUS. Manus AI is wonderful at going and doing competitor analysis, but is also really good at doing what's hot in terms of trends. What is market data showing in terms of what is the most popular in a market
okay,
segment, customer experience, where the money is being spent, and it comes back with a really, really detailed report, which you could scale up or scale down in complexity. Now, tools like this enable you to really reimagine where you spend your time and energy. So that would, for me, would be a really, really good, effective place to start to use it. The
okay,
second is also trying to come up with some of these agents that can actually answer customer queries 24/7. Now, they don't have to be complicated. They can be really, really basic in terms of customer profiles that you work with, case studies, things like this. But more and more people are feeling comfortable using these agents, such as Character AI. Character AI is one of the fastest growing companies of all time, where you
okay,
build your own avatar and you engage with it day to day. Marketing have now got the opportunity to build their own personal avatars, think of it as a personal nominees, that can answer 24/7 questions that you usually answer as a service for your customer. That could be a good place to start with an agent.
okay. So when and you're talking all of these as a paid or or a free version, which one works better for the?
So initially go with free because you're going to get to see what you like. Now there's not going to be everything that you can use within the free because it's going to be kind of closed off. But as you build more confidence of the free plan, then you experiment to 20 or 30 euro or $30 per month to see how good they are. And
Right.
they will want to keep you on their plan. But until you actually try two or three of them, you won't know what to do. Now, Navneet, you're probably thinking, and a lot of people thinking listening to this call, I don't have the time to do this. I'm working more than 40 hours a week anyway. And now you want me to add in more AI tools. You want me to reimagine my process. You want me to write up a job description. Where's the time mark, right? I get it, right? Well, one thing that you could do is take this prompt, act as if you're a schedule optimizer. I'm an agency owner. Help me save 3 hours per week so I can upskill using new AI tools to introduce to my marketing agency. Here's a day to day of my current workflow of my job that I do. Here's my calendar of last week. Get to work. The AI will come back asking you some clarifying questions about how you spend your time, and then it will offer you a schedule for next week that will save you 3 hours. You might come back to me again and go, but Mark, I get impromptu meetings. I'm reactive. It's not just like that. It's like,
Right.
okay, I get it, but why don't you add that into the response the AI gives you,
Okay.
and then look at the schedule it gives you. You will be blown away with the advice that it actually gives you to manage your time. So let's say we save 3 hours from the schedule, right? Next
Okay.
week. So we're doing 37 hours instead of 40, right? I'm a realist. You're not going to take those 3 hours and be more productive straight away. You're probably going to spend another hour out of that watching the football or having a friend drink with your friends. So let's say you're up 2 hours. Okay, let's say you're up 90 minutes because you now go to yoga once a day, right? So let's say you got 90 minutes. That 90 minutes spent over 5 days, use the AI tools to upskill you, have a different use case each day based on your work, and you will quickly see each week your time doing repetitive tasks will reduce.
Right.
You'll have more time to do innovative projects, different types of use cases. And most importantly, your team will see you grow. And then if you're leading by example and they're leading by you, collectively you're going to become more AI first. And then if you're talking to your customer, who doesn't want to hear a story where you save 2 to 3 hours per week? 1 hour is now playing football once a week, and you've got an additional 90 minutes to work on additional use cases for marketing and AI. That's inspirational, right? It's not a
Right.
man or a woman into the moon, but if you scale that over, let's say 48 weeks out of a year, that's meaningful.
Right. So that is an interesting way how I would suggest, and I probably try using more of the AI. Now, one last question for this segment is that how does this change how agency owners should be hiring human talent right?
They need to hire AI literate people.
Okay.
That they need to understand that the people that bringing into the business should be literate. They should be trying ChatGPT, Mid-Journey, Gemini. They should come with prompts. They should come
Okay.
because if they're not hiring those AI literate people, they're not going to inbred that new culture, and they need this culture of literacy to succeed.
Okay.
So for job seekers, my advice is lean into these tools, get it onto your CV or resume, because owners don't have the time, like we just said, to do all this themselves. They need the next wave who are AI native. And we're seeing from the results that the majority of people that are using OpenAI's ChatGPT, for example, are people in college or schools, right? So there's a real appetite to use it.
Okay. Let's move to our next stage where we be AI prompting mastery. So you have written that non-technical individuals can excel at prompting, and
Yeah,
that the liberal arts background contribute valuable skills.
yeah.
Of course, this is counterintuitive for most people. So let's make the case: why might an English major be better at prompting than a software engineer?
Well, listen, by this time next year, prompting may not be a thing because the context will become real natural language. But for now, AI is still probabilistic, right? And you need to kind of be very, very directive. So the prompting framework I created is called persona, context, command, format. Persona. Act as if you're a top 1% marketing agency. Context. We're looking to introduce this next viral product to the market.
Okay.
Command. Create me a report that's going to set out the next stages to do this and introduce that. Format. Make it a 100 executive page summary, whatever it might be. You're giving the AI a specific framework to use. And because you're giving it more context, it's going to work in so much better detail, right? And the more detail you give it, the better. So persona, context, command, format. But if you're actually saying to me, Mark, I don't have time to put a framework, I just need an idiot's guide. If you use a tool like promptcowboy.ai, again, I've got no affiliation with the product, it takes a lazy prompt, which is help me create a schedule, and turns it into like the Mercedes Benz of prompts, a really, really detailed prompt, right? So that's called meta prompting. So there's two
Okay.
ways you can use persona, content, command, format as a framework, or
Okay.
you can actually use prompt cowboy or meta prompting to actually do that. And again, with the prompting, you're just doing better problem definition. You're explaining what you want and then you're getting the better output. And for so many people, they're frustrated because they think, well, my AI talks like a robot and I would never say things like this, and this is not me. Well, your AI isn't a mind reader. You have to teach it about you, your context, your values, what's good, what's not so good. And then the AI becomes better and better because it's learning from you. Quick tip, if you're using ChatGPT, go
Right.
over to the settings, go to personalization, and give it some custom instructions. When you do that, the AI acts as if based on your custom instructions.
Okay. And I'm sure every other AI LLM has similar
They're
options
all
as well.
they're all they're all the same.
Right, right. Now, so going back to the that software engineer is not gonna be better in prompting compared to English major. So how do you teach technical people to think more like communicators?
Yeah. Well, one of the ways that you teach them is that you make it part of their job, right? So you say to them, part of your outcome is that you're able to explain this to a non-technical person, or the work that
Yeah.
you deliver is based on a user who isn't technical. And this is the future, right? The future is like vibe coding, where you're non-technical, you come up with a way to develop apps or websites just from natural language. And programmers need to understand that if everyone who isn't technical can now do their job, not quite to the extent to them, but to a very, very high level, they need to start to upskill, and they need to actually start to bring more empathy, design thinking, and intelligence to the work that they're doing, because otherwise they're going to find themselves redundant.
Okay. So is there a prompting skill gap you see also in the executives you work with?
Well, the executives I work with have got misaligned expectations because they don't know how good AI is and isn't because they're not using the tools themselves. They're reading
Oh,
reports, they're attending seminars, they're attending events, but they're not getting their hands dirty, right? And when you get your hands dirty of actually using the tools, doing prompting, trying workshops, that's when executives see how good it is, how not good it is, and the challenges it can help them solve. But unless they lean into doing this, it's always just going to be hearsay. It's kind of like asking an AI to describe what blue is like to eat, or what's it like to have rain on your face on a warm day, right? Until you've experienced that, you can't expect someone to actually articulate that. So they have to go on that journey.
right. So this is we came to our last segment of our show, which is the 2026 predictions. Now, you have said there's a significantly AI update every 72 hours. Now, with that pace of change, give me a more specific predictions for what the AI landscape looks like for agencies by the end of 2026. I mean, not the hype version, the realistic version based on everything you see or you have seen.
So probably the most impactful thing that's happening at the moment is that AI is doubling its capability every 7 months. So an AI can now do a task in coding that usually could do by itself like a minute up to like an hour, right? And that's going to mean that in the next 2, 3, 4 years, software engineers will role be completely different because the AI will be able to work unassisted where actually any oversight, right? Which is absolutely crazy. So consequently, workflows are going to start to change because the AI will be able to do a significant amount of workflows from knowledge workers. So that means that organizations are going to actually change. Now, 2026 will be the year of AI agents, but it's not that it'll be the year of AI agents doing all 100% of autonomous work for people, but it will become front and center where they're going to start to do very, very specific tasks consistently well. The knowledge
Okay.
document that they're trained on, the LLM's capability will improve. But what we're going to start to see is more multimodal, people doing speech to text more. You're going to see people wearing headphones in offices or have little microphones who are going to be kind of speaking to their AI and really having that as that decision support. We're also going to see organizations having a chief AI officer who's actually involved in making sure that AI is adopted across the organization, but making sure that security and guidelines is going to be very, very important, because cyber is going to become front and center. So we haven't even talked about deep fakes, cybercrime, fraud. That is going to have a significant amount of bad actors. And that means that organizations have to be on their guard, because this is going to be a dramatic impact for a lot of businesses where AI is going to be trying to take advantage of businesses. And if you're not set up to keep yourself secure, you're going to be on the wrong side of it. But fundamentally, this starts with literacy, AI literacy, teaching you how to use the tools, know what they're good at, know what they're not good at, and then actually start to figure out how you can solve them for your workflows. Translation in the last 6, 7 weeks has been pretty much solved. Where I can speak English, this can be translated to whatever dialect you choose, and this will actually have near perfect translation. That's a game changer. Organizations are going to start to use that in 2026 to offer different types of services across customer service, travel, all these different types of things. And that's going to be very, very impactful.
Wow. And so, what should agency owners be doing right now to be ready for that future? Is it they equip all of their sales guy with a headphone, or is it more?
So, you know what they need to do? Get out a pen, get out a paper, set out a vision. If that they only had to, if they had to start their business again, how would they do it? What would they do? Sit down with ChatGPT and use it as decision support to say, if I was going to compete with my business now from nothing, what would I do? And what would that AI first business look like? And then start to re-engineer your current system.
Okay, that's actually a good exercise to do, I'm sure, for everyone. And we all use ChatGPT, so I will encourage all my subscribers to do that. So, okay, Mark, this was a fantastic conversation. Of course, grounded practically, and of course, generally useful. I appreciate how you focus on people, process, and learning rather than just the tools. For everyone listening, we'll link to Mark and Aldous in the show notes. And for everyone listening, if you get value from the episode, share it with the agency owners who's trying to figure out AI. And don't forget to subscribe to Agency Inside the Show wherever you get your podcast. And thank you for giving me your time today.
My pleasure, Navneet. Wishing you the very, very best of luck in the coming days.
All right. Thank you. Let me just